Hello, and welcome to the FM podcast. I'm Jen Fritz, and I run Fritz Media, a music publicity and digital marketing firm located in Vancouver, Canada. And this is episode number 43 of the podcast. So the topic of this week's show is how to write a music grant. And joining me on the show is Jessica Hoefsloot, who writes a lot of grant applications through her company, Sad Kids Collective, which is an artist-friendly management company which offers things like digital marketing, grant writing, management consulting, and a whole lot more. And she's also, by the way, she has a day job, which is she's an influencer marketing account executive at Viral Nation. So she has a lot to bring into this discussion. We had a really great conversation and discussed the many tips and tricks for writing a successful music grant. And we talked about things like managing artist expectations and a whole lot more. It was a really great talk, and I hope you enjoy it. Here's my conversation with Jessica Hoefsloot. Well, hello, Jessica. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Well, you know what? It's the Friday of a long weekend, so feeling pretty good.
Yeah, and we got some sun, some Vancouver sun for a bit, so can't complain.
I know, it's been so nice. I know, I feel like the beginning of every one of my podcasts is, oh my God, there's sun, or oh my God, I want to kill myself because it's raining again. Not really, though. So you and I know each other. We've known each other for a while. We actually used to work in the same office back when you worked for Tonic Records. I've also worked with you on a couple of projects as well. Yeah. Why don't you tell us, how did you get started in the music industry?
Yeah, I feel like my story's kind of weird a little bit. I always wanted to work for a label, couldn't really figure out how to get there. So I started in business. In marketing, realized I wasn't really into the corporate ideas. So I transferred to the AEM program at CAP University. And then through that, I started the internship with Tonic, and then kind of got hired on and moved up through there as well. So that's where I was able to meet you and like so many other great people, and also learn more about grants. So
that's right. So from Tonic Records, let's do a little bit of a resume walk here. I like to do that too, especially with you young folks. So you started with Tonic Records, and then where did that lead you to?
I moved to Opposition, which is another Vancouver-based label, primarily working with U.S. artists, a couple Canadian artists as well, but not so much grant heavy, more focusing on the marketing of it. And then I also have my own company, Sad Kids Collective, where I manage a couple of local artists and work on grants. And then I now work in influencer marketing at Viral Nation as well.
I love that. Yeah. I love that you're an influence marketer. It's like my favorite thing.
It's fun. They're very similar to musicians in a lot of ways, so I get it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, artists are artists,
yeah.
You know, in whatever capacity. Content creators, even.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All the same. So the topic of this week's show is how to write a music grant. And I wanted to talk to you because you write a lot of grants through your company, Sad Kids Collective, which means artists can hire you to write a grant for them. So why don't we start there? Like, how should an artist decide between writing a grant themselves or maybe hiring someone like you to do it for them?
Yeah, I always like to tell artists that a lot of artists can write it themselves, but I will say that some artists aren't as organized. And I think if you're someone that kind of can't come up with like the organization part of it, don't really like the admin tasks, or even like writing your bio, I think those are kind of skills that being able to talk about yourself, being able to come up with a marketing plan for yourself that is really tailored to you, that I find a lot of artists have difficulty with. Mm-hmm. That said, I've met a lot of artists that can write for themselves, but I think they're kind of a special breed in themselves too. Yeah. I'm sure you met them on the like publicity side too. There's some artists that come like very prepared, and a lot of times it's like, you could probably even do this yourself, but yeah.
Yeah. No, it's true. I think the skill set is really like project manager.
Yeah.
That's kind of the skill set that you have to do something like this. And yes, I have, had artists on the publicity side that are amazing. And I'm just like so excited because they are just as organized as me. But I mean, usually it's, I mean, and that's fair. I mean, you're an artist, you're a musician, you're not a project manager. So I totally understand,
Yeah.
I'm not, being mean about it. If they're not, it's,
oh yeah, no,
it's hard.
They're a rare breed. I think I've maybe met 5 in the whole time I've written that have actually kind of had that together. So yeah, definitely rare.
Yeah. Is one of them Dust?
Yeah.
Yeah. Also on my side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dust is an artist that we worked with together last year on their project, which was amazing. And Dust was probably one of the most organized musicians that I've ever worked with.
Yeah, no, and that was also kind of fun too, because I started working with them on grants, and then we kind of moved on to managing them as well. So it's cool to kind of be able to build that relationship and then bring other people on the team like you. And yeah, it's kind of fun.
So if somebody wants to hire you or maybe, somebody else to write a grant for them, what's the cost generally associated with that?
I think that most grant writers usually charge 15%. That's fairly standard. As I work with a lot of like emerging artists, I usually charge 10% of whatever the grant is if it gets accepted, and then $100 up front, just so that I'm still getting something if the grant doesn't get accepted, just because it is a lot of work, but then it's also cheaper for the artist in the long run if the grant does get accepted.
Oh, totally. And I guess do most grant writers ask for an upfront cost? I would imagine they would. They need to be paid for their work. Yeah.
Most grant writers that I've met just charge the 15% if it's accepted.
Yeah.
So they don't charge an upfront cost. So I kind of changed that just so it could be more sustainable so that I could actually do more grant writing as well.
Well, yeah, to me, that doesn't make any sense because you have to get paid for your work, right?
Yeah, so. It's definitely more risky. So yeah, I have heard from some other artists that there are a couple grant writers that will even charge like $1,000 upfront, which I feel like is a lot, but yeah.
I guess that depends on the amount of money you're asking for too, or the amount of work that goes into the grant as well.
For sure.
I would imagine the cost would be grant dependent. Like I'm sure there's some grants that are harder to write than others, right?
Yeah. Usually that's pretty reflective in like the percentage of it too. So when the grant gets funded, those are usually for higher pay. Like the artist gets more money, so then they can give you more percentage of it as well.
Oh, that's great. Now, here in Canada, we're super lucky because not only do we have like federal and provincial arts funding, we also have plenty of different options for grants. Can you explain just some of the different places that artists can get funding for their music?
Yeah, I think a lot of people have probably heard of the main ones being like Factor, Creative BC, Music BC for some travel stuff. I think one that's often overlooked is the Canada Council grant. I know a lot of artists that are more in the commercial space think that you have to be very experimental, but I do think they've kind of changed their program a bit. They're more accepting to newer artists, even if you don't have a lot of background. So that's one I recommend to a lot of artists as well.
Yeah, I actually have had a few clients that have had the Canada Council grant recently.
Yeah.
So have they opened things up a bit? Because that never used to be the case.
Yeah, I think I don't fully know how their juries work. They're kind of confidential about it, but I find that they're definitely more receptive to, as long as you're tailoring the grant to be more creative and kind of delve into that aspect of it. I find that they're pretty receptive to different artists, and you don't necessarily have to have 5,000 in album sales, which I think is really hard to get now, especially with streaming. So yeah.
Yeah. If you're an independent artist that is going to apply for their very first grant, where would you say to start with funding? Should I go to Factor? If I live in BC, should I go to Creative BC, Music BC, or any of every province has their own provincial funding MIA that they can apply to as well?
Yeah, I think every province is kind of different. So there's some provinces like Alberta actually has quite a bit of funding that some other provinces don't have. But Factor, usually the artist development program, I think is a pretty good place to start. Depending on how big your project is, Canada Council can also be great. They fund up to 60 grand. So it's quite substantial compared to the previously 2 grand, but now 5 grand from the artist development program.
Yeah.
And then Creative BC, I find they're really great for more established artists, but they used to fund more like emerging artists, but I find that they've kind of shifted a little bit more to kind of need some background and some sales to back it up.
Right. Yeah. So maybe not the best place for an artist just starting out. Maybe build up your story a bit first, right?
For sure. Yeah. And then like Music BC has always been great too. And like with any travel grants, I feel like those come up every few months and they're really receptive to stuff as there's always new artists applying. So yeah, those are also really great.
Yeah, they're so good for travel grants. You know, any artist that is doing any sort of touring, which is difficult these days, or even if you're just going to like a music conference to play or something like that, like it's really great for those sorts of things. And I think people always forget about them.
I do too. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the success rate of these grants. We know that there's a lot of artists that are applying for them, but obviously not everybody can get them. What are some just, basic tips that can help boost an artist to the level of possibly getting a grant?
Yeah. Usually what I recommend to artists in a similar way to like when you're starting to think about your project in terms of like the artwork or working with a publicist is at the end of the day, like, what is your story? So a lot of artists apply, but a lot of times it's very generic in what they're mentioning in their marketing plans. So I'd recommend tailoring it with either like adding pictures or adding graphics. It's not a requirement, but it definitely makes your application stand out. And then also looking to other artists that you like and seeing what they've done on the marketing side. So if the artist that you like is really big on TikTok, you can kind of look at some of the things that they've done on TikTok and see how you can kind of incorporate that's more tailored to your band. I think the more unique it is, the more it kind of stands out and shows that you like really put the thought into it. And you're also like going to be able to actually facilitate it if you get the funding, which is such a big thing, especially with majority of the juries as well.
No, that's very true. I think that, one of the biggest mistakes, I don't write grants. I am really happy that we have the grant funding because, those artists can pay me for our services. So that's fantastic. But just from me, somebody who sits as a juror on Factor and Music BC, one of the biggest mistakes that I often see is artists just copy and pasting.
Yeah.
Maybe they got like an old marketing plan from somebody else and just inserted name here. And so that uniqueness is so important because it's just, you can look at that and go, I know that you're just regurgitating something that has nothing to do with who you are as an artist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've also been surprised I'm also a Factor juror and have been on Music BC juries as well, but I have been surprised at sometimes the larger artists that put stuff forward and you can tell that it's kind of been regurgitated from something else.
Yeah.
So it's not just like new artists too. So
yeah,
it's
no, that's true.
Refreshing to see that.
Yeah. In fact, I think some of the best ones I have seen recently are artists that I have never heard of, but are huge just in the digital landscape. So
yeah,
they have like huge followers on TikTok or are doing the work there. And I'm just like, what? And then,
yeah.
and I love that. I love to be excited by or discover, somebody that's like living in Vancouver that has this huge fan base. I had no idea.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things. That's also something, I mean, not all artists like to do it, but if you have a bit of a background, like I know that Factor is open to jurors and they're always looking for people.
Oh, yeah.
And I find it can be a great way to kind of see what other people are doing and how you can kind of better your own application as well. That's definitely an added bonus as to why I'm a juror in a lot of ways too.
I mean, like full disclosure, Jessica, it's also why I'm a juror.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like, I'm not using it to look for artists because you're not supposed to do that. What I mean is just in the sense that I like to see what other people are doing. And
Yeah.
just like, oh my God, that's so cool. I hadn't thought about that as a marketing idea or plan, not that you're going to steal it, but it's just exciting. There's so much creativity out there. And I guess that's what you need to have when you're when you're writing these applications.
Yeah, no, I find that a lot of times it can really kickstart artists' creative ideas, whether that's both for the marketing plans on the grants, but also when they start to release their own music as well.
Yeah, definitely. Now, you write a lot of grants for artists. How do you manage the expectations when it comes to that?
Yeah, definitely not my favorite part. But yeah, I think I'm pretty honest with artists. I don't guarantee anything in the same way that like no publicist can guarantee they're going to get like a huge feature for an artist. Like you do the best you can. So I think really managing the expectations about which grants are more successful, but also trying to lead artists to apply for grants that are more applicable to them. Like if you're a new artist that hasn't released anything, maybe the Factor JSR isn't the best fit for you, and maybe you should apply for the artist development. So kind of trying to make sure they're applying for the right grants, make sure everything's tailored to them, but also just letting them know there's no guarantee in it. And it's definitely very competitive as well.
It is. It's competitive and, just subjective as well, right?
Yeah.
It could just be, maybe the person listening to it it's not their jam or something, right?
Yeah, I do find that a lot of times you can apply like 2 or 3 times. And sometimes if you get a different juror that is just a fan of the sound of your voice or the sound of your music more than another juror, that definitely comes into play as well. But also something hard to control, I'm sure, from the grant side, because you can't really take subjectivity away from art that's inherent to the art.
No, it is. You put something out there, not everybody's going to like it. That's just the way it is. And you just focus on the people that do. Yeah, you mentioned there, like just, applying a number of times. What's some positive advice that you can give to an artist that's maybe applied a lot but hasn't received any funding yet?
Yeah, I mean, I it's probably cheesy, but don't give up with it.
Don't give up.
Yeah, even one of the artists that I manage, like we applied 3 times. First 2 times we got like 0.5% away. The second time was like 1% away. So we were always very close, but it was just like making sure that we were implementing the feedback that was given to us, but also just kind of like sticking with it. We knew at some point it would probably get funded. It just wasn't the right jury at the right time. And now it's worked out really well. And their release is coming up, and we've kind of been working on that the last year. But yeah, it's definitely a bit more of a struggle. And I know that it's a lot for artists who kind of always want to release right away as soon as they finish something in the studio. But yeah, I'd say just stick with it.
Yeah, it can be frustrating. I know there's, I talk to a lot of artists and they're just like, how come he got it and I didn't get it? Or, like it can be really hard that way, but you just got to keep your head down and keep at it and just be grateful that we live in a country that has arts funding in the first place.
Yeah, I actually, I work with a lot of artists that have American managers. So I do a lot of explaining to kind of how the system works as well. And they're always like, what is the catch? Like, why is the government doing this? You just get the money for free. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of how it works. So yeah, we're definitely very lucky in Canada.
No, we just fund the arts. It's fine.
Yeah.
Obviously not something that's only in Canada. There's a lot of countries out there that do have arts funding, but we are very close to the United States, and they do not have a lot of arts. So. So last week on the show, I talked to Sean Peche from Sled Island and Trickle Down Music, and he brought up how it sucks that the artists can't pay themselves through their funding, which, is a valid point. Like the artist is paying everyone, people like me, people like you, studios, producers, and they're paying everyone except for themselves for the creation and promotion of their music. What are some changes that you think would help, make things better within the grant funding system, just kind of jumping off the point that Sean made there?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the grant. Some grants do allow you to, there's usually a limit to it, but you can pay yourself a little bit. Other grants, I would say most grants pretty much have a cap to it. So like 25% of the fund you can use towards yourself, but not anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think that, especially for a lot of artists that kind of do everything themselves, and more artists are doing all the production and everything like that, I think it should be more accommodating to kind of artists that are like self-made and self-produced. Yeah, I think in a lot of ways, like grants are great and they're really supportive for artists, but they also have a lot of room to grow and kind of get with the digital age, I think, in a lot of ways. And I think this is this is part of that as well. So I'm curious to see how that changes and how they can kind of adapt to that as well and kind of grow that percentage a little bit more, or not put a cap on it like some grants do.
Yeah. Another thing that I've just noticed as somebody who is a benefactor of the grant funding is that specifically in the last year, the money has been slower to come to the artist. Do you I find that is a way that they could definitely speed things up a little bit. Like, I know that the idea is, the artist could pay for it themselves, and then when they get the money, pay themselves back. But a lot of artists just don't have that disposable income, which is the problem. I find that to be a very big barrier right now, especially coming out of COVID.
Yeah, that's always kind of been not my beef, but the problem that I've seen with grants. Also, like with companies like Factor, I find that even if they're telling you 6 to 8 weeks, sometimes it's more like 3 to 4 months, which is a lot longer. It definitely delays things for the artist as well. And at the end of the day, like, I feel like it's no secret that everyone knows that artists don't make a lot of money. And on top of that, like, one of the biggest funding sources of that was touring, which they weren't able to do. So I definitely think it needs to be more receptive of that. I know, for instance, with Canada Council, like, they'll pay you the full fund up front, or you can choose to have it divided among a couple of years if you want it easier on your taxes.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, I think that definitely helps. It takes a lot longer to find out for those grants. Usually it's like 6 to 7 months, but I do find that it kind of gives the artist more to kind of kickstart to be able to do stuff with it. I don't know. It's hard because it's government. I have noticed
everything moves slow anyway, right? Yeah.
Yeah. With some of the private funds, like MVP moves a little bit faster, but it's run by RBC, so private funding, they can kind of go off their own time and be a little bit faster with things. But yeah.
Yeah. And I just want to, kind of put a disclaimer in here that we are very grateful for the funding.
Yes.
And I'm not, trying to be nitpicky because we're happy to have it, but it would make things a lot better for the artist. Is all I'm saying.
And I'm sure it's difficult from them too, trying to like kind of manage how many applications are coming in. But yeah, it would definitely make it a lot quicker for the artist.
All right. So just wrapping things up a little bit here, this kind of actually speaks to a little bit of what we were talking about, but we're living in a time that's very challenging for everybody working in the music industry, not just the artist. I mean, mostly the artist, but all of us are having a hard time. What do you think is the biggest challenge that artists are faced with these days? I mean, you can just say money.
Yeah.
Which is probably the answer. I don't know.
I think money is definitely there. I think one of the biggest, it's a blessing and a curse, but oversaturation, it's a lot easier for more people to be artists, which in a way it's great. It kind of takes the monopoly out of it, but in the same time, it means that it's a lot more competitive. So it's a lot harder to get the publicity or the social media traction or even the streams for it, which in turn makes it more difficult to kind of get the money and get the touring and everything else. So yeah, I think like definitely the funding and kind of having that like base to build off of, but also kind of making yourself stand out because there's so many artists out there. So it's difficult for them to kind of break away.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially on the publicity side, there's so much. Yeah. And, we're pitching up against so many people. So you really have to think, what makes me unique? What makes me stand out from these people? What makes me different and not like everyone else? I mean, there is something So, because we're all different. So you just have to figure out what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's challenging though, man. I'm trying to be positive this season because I feel like, we all work in this industry and we want it to succeed. We really want, we love music, right? But I also don't want to downplay the fact that it's hard for everybody right now.
Yeah. And I would ask, or I like to ask a lot of artists this too, but I think a great thought starter is like, why are you doing it? Because if at the end of the day, you're doing it because you want to be famous or because you want to make money, maybe this isn't the industry or the path for you, because it is very difficult. And if you're not willing to put in the work and kind of build that foundation, it's really hard to kind of build your team or even get your audience to kind of get on board as well.
No, that's very true. It's not the 90s, right?
Yeah.
So you're not gonna make boatloads of cash, my friend.
Yeah. Even like 10 years ago, I think like it was very like not cut and paste, but like you got publicity, you got radio, and then you got famous, or not famous, but like you were able to get traction and actually like earn money off of that. Yeah. But I think it's a lot more difficult now to kind of be able to get a profit from it too. Not saying that people can't. I just think it's a lot more work on the artist as well to kind of get there.
Okay, I feel like this is probably a good time to head on over to our fresh content segment. Every week on the show, we discuss our favorite piece of music content for the week. And we always like to start with the guest. So Jessica, what do you got?
So this is like kind of a couple weeks old, so maybe it's not like super fresh, but I have really been loving the If I Were a Fish trend on TikTok by Koruk. I think it's such a fun way, and I think it really shows that like you don't need a full team behind you. You can just do it by yourself, and sometimes you can get traction from it when people can see that like you're earnest and authentically yourself. So I really love to kind of see those moments come through, because you see so many things from larger labels kind of pushing stuff through. So to see something like that like an artist has really done themselves kind of brings me back to kind of why I got in the industry, and kind of gives me hope that artists can still do that as well.
I agree with you. I find it, I don't know, there was something about it that it was so heartwarming.
Yeah.
It just felt so authentic in a way. For people that don't know, let's explain the trend a little bit. Maybe we'll link to it in the show notes as well. But why don't you try and like Cole's notes it for people?
Yeah. So I think essentially this artist made a TikTok between them and their partner singing a song that they wrote called If I Were a Fish. Very like heartwarming, body positive song that I think like really resonated with people, especially with a lot of the political stuff going on right now. I think it was kind of a light note that people could kind of latch onto. And it was a very simple video of just them singing together, but it really kind of blew up and got them a lot of traction. And now their other music has started to get a little bit more traction as well. But yeah, it's just a very simple song, kind of reminiscent of like Kimya Dawson or Moldy Peaches, if anyone was a fan of them.
No, that's everybody on Twitter was saying this is basically just Kimya Dawson, right?
Yeah.
So, but whatever, it resonated with people, and it was so simple, and I couldn't get it out of my head also for days, which is good bad sign, right?
Yeah.
So.
That's good marketing, whether you like it or not.
Yeah. And it's also, like you said, like such a good point. So many like major labels are trying to like force their artists to go viral on TikTok by just like, I don't know, even like looking at someone like Lady Gaga, she doesn't belong there. I'm just like, you know what I mean? Like trying to make her do something that doesn't feel authentic to her. Do you know? And you can tell. And I don't know. That's
the biggest thing that I'm always telling artists too, is just like, if a certain social media doesn't feel natural to you, don't go on it, because the artist or the other people on it are going to be able to see that and realize that you're not authentic, and it's just going to annoy a lot of people. So I think it's better to focus on, like, if you like Instagram, focus on Instagram. If you like TikTok, focus on that. But make it authentic to you, and that will resonate with more people.
100%. It's great advice, Jessica. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. So my fresh content for the week is Janelle Monae's new video for Lipstick Lover.
Love that.
And yeah, the song is amazing, first of all, but the video is next level. I just, you can feel the absolute joy, the sex positivity, the community, the friendship, just like, it just made me want to just like rent a house with a pool and like hang out with my friends and party. Like it's just so good, and definitely going to be a song of the summer, I think. And we love Janelle Monae.
Yeah, she's always, I feel like she's an artist that always has like really cool visuals, and it's always different to her, but it's not like different to be different necessarily. It's just like who she is, which I think is really hard to do, but it always surprises me. I love her.
Yeah, I think the other thing I like is, we can be many different things. And I think as an artist, you get put in a box a lot. And when you try to change up your image, people are like, what is she doing now? Like, what do you, and it's like, no, I contain multitudes. So it's, you know what I mean? It's like, she can have different sides because people have different sides. And, she can be somebody that was this and is now this. That's fine. Who cares?
Yeah.
Anyway, on that note, thank you so much for joining us, Jessica. Is there anything that you want to plug before we go here?
Yeah. If you're interested in kind of learning more about grants, or if you kind of just want to get a better understanding, even if like you don't want to work together, but want to learn more about how the grants work, my DMs are always open. So feel free to reach out to the Sad Kids Instagram too, because I'm always open to talk and share information where I can.
Cool. And what's your handle on Instagram?
It's at Sad Kids Go.
Okay. I'll link to that in the show notes too. Well, have a good rest of your day.
Thanks.
Bye.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
That was such a great conversation. I really hope you liked it. And thanks again to Jessica for coming on the show. Thanks so much for listening to the FM podcast. If you like the show, please tell your friends and give us a 5-star rating and review in Apple Podcasts. It really, really helps out the show. So if you can just take, a little bit of time to do it, we'd really appreciate it. The FM podcast is produced by Fritz Media with production assistance from Carla J. If you want to learn more about Fritz Media, check out our website at fritzmedia.ca, and you can follow us on Facebook. We're at Fritz Media, and on Instagram and Twitter at Fritz_media. And if you want to learn more about the podcast, just go to thefmpodcast.com. A big thank you to Said the Whale for providing the theme music for the show, and you can check them out at saidthewhale.com. Okay, so we're going to go out with our song of the week this week, which is a song from one of the artists that me and Jessica brought up during our conversation because they are so organized. So this is Cwaine with their song 90s Darling.
Till the street lights come on. A game of grounders nobody can win. Sitting, waiting, wishing for our lives to begin. Be kind or rewind. You could never leave me behind. I'm in every song you sing. I can be your 90s darling. With the murmur of the you know exactly who you are. I'm in every song you sing, 'cause I'm your 90s darling. Holes in our shoes from chasing ice cream trucks. Punch buggy champion just on luck. Think we're cool with our candy cigarettes. Imaginary matches 'cause we haven't grown up yet. Be kind or rewind. You could never leave me behind. I'm in every song you sing. I can be your 90s darling. With the murmur of the VCR, you empty graveyard covered with thick mist. We are the weirdos, mister. Don't you ever forget. Can't name a single thing that I would regret. Being your 90s darling. Be kind, rewind. You could never leave me behind. I'm in every song you sing. I can be your 90s darling. With the murmur of the VCR, you know exactly who you are. I'm in every song you sing, 'cause I'm your 90s darling. Be kind, rewind. You could never leave me behind. I'm in every song you sing. I can be your 90s darling. With the murmur of the VCR, you know exactly who you are. I'm in every song you sing, 'cause I'm your 90s darling. I am your 90s darling.
Bye. I'll see you next Tuesday.